Alright, so in this part of our LTR series, we're going to be doing the wheel bearings. Obviously you need to put a floor jack under your quad to get it up out of the air and then take your wheels off. We used a 13mm socket with an impact to take our lug nuts off. It's going to vary per quad. People change the lug nuts out for different styles, so that we can't really give you an exact size on. But we're going to head over to our workbench, go over the tools needed, and what we're going to be using for replacement bearings. So we moved over to our workbench. Just going to go over the quick tools, some supplies you may need. I have a 1/2-inch breaker bar here. It's not necessary if you have an impact and an air compressor. It works way better than trying to do it by hand. A pair of needle nose for the cotter pins. We have a 12mm socket and a 3/8 ratchet for the brake. And then we have a 19mm for the axle nut that holds your hub assembly on. 13mm. We use that for our lug nuts. Yours may vary. Double check that before you start your project. We have our 1/2-inch ratchet. We have a large 3/8 punch for when we drive the bearings out of the hub. You can also use a floor press like we have, just another alternative. A hammer, obviously, to hit the punch with. We're going to be using all balls racing bearings once again for our wheel bearings. We don't have them yet. They're on their way here. We're going to go pick them up probably on Monday or Tuesday.
They are local.
They are local, very local to us, about 20 minutes away. So once again, all balls racing. They make just about everything you need for your dirt bike or ATV. We definitely recommend them. And then we have our usual anti-seize, aero coil, and for this video we have brake clean. When you take your hubs off of your quad, the discs actually stay on the hub. So we have brake clean here to wash any grease that we get on the brake disc, because you know grease is bad for brakes. So now we're going to move over to the quad and start disassembling. So we brought all of our tools over here. We're going to start on our front wheel bearings. The two tools that are needed for this step mainly are your 19mm to take your hub bolt out, obviously needle nose to take your cotter pin out, and then you're going to need your 12mm to take this bolt out here for your brake, and then there's another one. I can't really get a good shot of it, but there's one right here on the back side. You'll be able to see where the caliper mounts. That'd be a good time to do brakes as well, brake pads. So if you're disassembling everything, you might as well do brakes. We'll probably do a little video on how to do brakes on this thing before we sell it or keep it. Haven't really decided yet. But so we're going to take those out, and the hub should pull right off the shaft. So once you have your hub nut off and your two bolts holding your brake caliper on, just going to want to slide the brake caliper off to the side, and then your whole hub just slides right off. Now obviously you want to clean all this old excess grease off of the hub, the wheel shaft, hub shaft, whatever you want to call it. You want to make sure it's nice and clean, lubricated obviously. We're actually probably going to take this off of the quad itself, the complete hub, and powder coat it. Everything was rattle canned on this quad, so we're hoping to clean it up a little bit, give it a little bit of a nicer look with some fresh powder coating. Now that we have our hubs all cleaned up, we're ready to install our new bearings and seals. Once again, we're using All Balls. They make a fantastic product. They are local to us here in Pennsylvania, about 20 minutes down the road, about an hour northwest of Philadelphia. So check them out, check out their website. They have a vehicle finder where you can actually type in your vehicle, whether it be a car, truck, SUV, dirt bike, four-wheeler, side-by-side. Look them up. You can see all the parts they have available for your make and model and year. But they make fantastic stuff. Once again, they're sealed bearings, a new set of seals. So we're getting ready to install our wheel bearings. As you can see, we cleaned our hubs up a lot nicer than just cleaning the inner bore out. We took our hubs over to a local friend. His name's Aaron. He's with a company called Powdered Remedies. They hooked us up with powder coat pretty much for the whole front end, and we're going to be doing some pieces on the rear as well. So check them out on Facebook We'll have a link in the video description below, and we'll have a link to All Ball's website as well. So we're going to get set up here, and we're going to put new bearings in our wheel hubs. I know we said we were going to go over and press in our new bearings. I totally forgot to include this in the clip. Don't forget this. This is the spacer between your inner and outer bearing. Me, like an idiot, forgot it on the one I did in the clip. As you can see, it's not in there. Luckily, on the second one, I remembered. As you can see, it is in there. So, playing this before I press in the bearings, PSA, public service announcement. Don't forget this like I did. Don't be dumb. Alright, we moved over to our bench press. We're going to be pressing the front wheel bearings in. We are actually going to be using a socket to help drive it in all the way so we can do this in one fluid motion. We found for the front inner, or outer I should say, 1-inch socket seems to do the trick. It gets us the best fit to the outer race of the bearing. And you want to make sure you're applying most of the force to the outer so you get a nice press in. If you apply too much force to the inner, or you're on the oil seal right here, you'll damage the bearing. If you're on the inner, you could actually press the bearing in too far and push the inner race right out. So, as you can see, just about in there. Reset the socket a little bit. I like to stick my finger here on the back side of the socket, so when I am pressing I can feel the movement of everything being pressed in. And now our socket's fully seated. So we're going to flip it over, do the same thing to the back side. Now it's a little hard to install the wrong bearing. The front side's actually smaller, so if you mix them up you messed up pretty good. So we're going to set up our hub here, and we found for the back side the inner 30mm socket fits the outer race perfectly. Just get her started there pretty level, set our socket on, and press. There we go. Both of our bearings are installed. Now we're going to move back over to our workbench and put in our oil seals. Now that we're back at our workbench, we're going to install our oil seals on both of our hubs. These are the same as the bearings, kind of hard to mix up. They are two different sizes. This is the outer, as you can see, matches the same size as the bearing, and the inner is substantially larger. So we're going to use our rubber mallet to install these. The way I do it is just get one side started like so, and just lightly tap until it's seated and flush on the face. Now at this point as well, don't forget your spacer. We saved ours, as you should do the same. Your spacer sits right here in the oil seal against the inner race of the bearing. Make sure you save them. We said in the beginning of the video, and I'll say it again now. And we're going to flip it over and do the back side. Make sure it's nice and flush. Then you're going to repeat this process on the other hub. Now we have our rear brake disc off since we got it powder coated. We're going to go ahead and reinstall that as well. And then we're going to move everything over to our quad and reinstall. Okay, so we moved back over to our blaster. We're ready to install our hub assembly with the new bearings in it. Pretty straightforward assembly. You're just going to take your hub, pop right on your front axle, and then don't forget your little spacer that goes on the end of the shaft. It kind of pops into the seal, it goes against the bearing, and then you're going to reinstall your castle nut with your cotter pin. we have to get our castle nut from our powder coater. We left them there. But you're going to install your castle nut and tighten it up. Now, when you tighten up your castle nut, you want to make sure it's tight, but not too tight. So you want to make sure there's no slop. There should be no movement of your hub back and forth, but you should still be able to spin your hub freely like so. So when you're tightening it down, as you get close to being tight and you're lining up your castle nut with your hole for your cotter pin, just spin your hub. Make sure there's enough free play. It moves freely. If you tighten it down too much, it'll almost put it in a bind and your hub won't spin very freely. So that's pretty much how to do the wheel bearings in your LT250R. Check back in a couple days. We should have another video up focusing on your ball joints and your needle bearings in your A-arm. We have another video for your new tie rods and one for your steering stem. So once those videos are posted, we're going to be doing a full rear end rebuild on our LT250R. So check back in a couple days and we should have some new videos up. Have a good one, guys.